Appreciate that. I think just from my perspective, looking at, as Mr. Dawes pointed out, the new language is not very desirable. One way would be to make amendments and suggest changes to the JPA. I frankly wouldn't know where to begin because it seems like much of the language is not to the benefit of us as a water purveyor nor for the community. So, we can certainly bring it back for more discussion and see what develops, but I'm not sure what benefit that would be, spending more staff time and more board time discussing it, personally. Just a question for Mr. Dodd. So your comment was that you don't think this is beneficial for the district either. Is that correct? The correct assessment?
So you're referring to the JPA?
Yeah.
Or our inclusion in the group? Because this JPA, as it's written today, is not beneficial, and I would not ask you to sign this particular version.
Yep.
Our inclusion in the group has its benefits, but there's also its disadvantages. The benefits really are on a funding aspect through shared cost and the availability of future regional projects that could help the district. That doesn't mean that if a project comes forward that is both in the county area and would benefit us, that we can't partner with the county and do a county or a joint project. I mean, we could do that at any point with anything, really, as long as it's within our purview.
Sure.
So, it really just comes down to a numbers thing, whether or not the cost savings of being part of the regional project or regional group is enough to outweigh the potential losses in our, I don't even know how to put it, but basically, we could get shoehorned into paying for something that doesn't benefit the district.
Right, because the way it's written, we don't have much say in it.
Well, as it's written right here in this particular version, EPC, Shannon, San Juan, or the county, 2 of the 3 would have to agree before anything can move forward, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Can anybody read it with a straight face?
I couldn't. It didn't go well on the PVCC.
I was gonna say.
Okay, do we have any other board comment or question?
Going to have public comment?
Yes, we have public comment. All right, I'll open it up for public comment.
This isn't even public comment. I think you need to clarify a couple things here. One is, the way I understand it, we're under the MOA, and this JPA is a amendment to that, to change the MOA, and that requires 100% vote of the 5 GSAs to even accept whatever the form is of the JPA. And I'd like to ask your attorney if that's correct, in my opinion.
It is not an amendment to the MOA. This would effectively, if any JPA is entered into, whether San Miguel's part of it or not, it will terminate the MOA and the PVCC will not exist. So they're 2 totally separate things, and the JPA would be a whole new public agency.
And what happens to the MOA that existed? I mean, if you can't...
It terminates.
Yeah, that's just illegal. That's legally the way it gets handled.
If you read the draft agreement, the parties are agreeing that as of the effective date of the JPA agreement, the MOA is terminated.
Yeah, but if one of the
all parties to a contract can agree to terminate it.
No, I understand. If one of the parties doesn't agree, then how does it go forward? If one of the 5 parties that are named in that agreement do not agree, how does it go forward with respect to the Paso Basin?
I have an opinion about that. If there's a question as to whether my opinion is agreed to by the other parties. So in my opinion, it would fall under the withdrawal provision of the MOA, and it would be treated as if San Miguel is withdrawn.
No, they.
Well, if they withdraw, does that mean that they still have responsibilities as a GSA? If they're not, if they don't sign on to the new agreement, or are they now released from being a GSA and this becomes part of the county GSA?
No, everyone will still be a GSA. It is an organization of the GSAs to put together their shared powers into one agency, one public entity to operate on their behalf, but all of the GSAs will still exist.
Okay. Then my other question is, how did this happen? At the meeting last night, one of the comments that was made is that all 5 GSA attorneys were involved in developing this draft. Is that true? Were you involved to any extent in doing this draft?
Yeah, as I've stated before, I've been involved in meetings where I am able to comment on the drafts of the agreement and state whether I believe my board will be on board with things or not.
And,
some of my changes are accepted and some of them are.
well,
Within
the board wasn't aware of your involvement until the drafts came out, correct?
No, that's not true.
It's not. How about the revised one that came out day before yesterday? Was the board aware of that revision? Were you involved in that?
I received specific approval from the board at the last meeting to continue to be involved in these meetings, yes.
Okay, and you were involved in this revision that was a last minute, violated the Brown Act, which I understand the PBC is under because they didn't have a 72-hour notice and so on. Is that, do you think that's a problem or what?
I'm gonna stop and ask the president of the board if he wants us to continue or not, because we've got into quite a back and forth here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we'll,
All right, so, the way I see this, and, well, let me go through.
Not to be picky, because time is up.
yeah, we're at time, Murray.
Huh?
You're out. We're already in.
Oh, yeah, well, I was hoping you were gonna comment as being public comment, more questions, just to clarify the way this works. Everybody.
Sure.
I'll get it.
So,
I'll get it. I'll get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very well. I understand it a little different. I kind of get the impression that these other members could leave the MOA. Anybody can leave the MOA. So they can leave the MOA and go out on their own and then make their own organization. If you don't want to join their new organization, you don't have to. I wouldn't join their organization. Those 3 agencies are looking out for those 3 agencies. Bruce Gibson has received thousands of dollars from those other 2 agencies. And those 2 agencies were illegally formed because he sat on the LAFCO board and let them petition when they're in violation of the water code. But none of that seems to matter legality until somebody wants to pull the trigger and point the stuff out. So all they're doing in their thing that they're trying to push forward is to cover their administration costs. Do we need another board and another attorney and another general manager with no projects to do nothing except what they want to do? You guys, as a GSA, have your boundaries. All you have to do is provide the information to the DWR and or the county or whoever on what your water meters say, what your well heights are, and if there is a project you can do for recharge, which is what a septic system, which you have some, is a certified state recharge facility. I would improve on that. I would improve instead of that pipeline to nowhere, that you use your water that you have instead of letting it evaporate, get a recharge project and get some grant money for that and benefit your community. That's what's going to benefit you guys. You guys have your boundary. San Juan has their boundary. EPC has their boundary. The county has a boundary, but the county doesn't have any representation because our representative works for those other guys. The city's gonna have to make their own decision. I can't believe they're just gonna help pay for these other guys' projects. But they got their own situations with, hotel rooms. Are the hotel rooms gonna pay a rate? Is the fairgrounds gonna pay a rate for the 10 days that they're open and the prior and the end for all the water they use there with 50,000 people showing up every day? There's a whole lot of unanswered things, and they're all looking for somebody else to pick up the tab so they can keep growing grapes with the intention of transferring, exchanging, moving, and selling water. And for anybody that thinks that water isn't exported, everybody pumps water out of the ground, regardless of where you're at. Whether it's the river, not cement, somewhere. Whichever basin, Tascadero, Paso. Paso takes their water, gives it to their constituents like you guys do. Sends it to their treatment plant after the constituents use it. Dumps it in the Salinas River, and it goes to the ocean in Monterey. They have never once recharged their water. So they not only use the water, they export the water. Where every other person that lives over the basin that has a septic system that pumps water, goes to their house, goes in their certified, state-approved recharge facility called a septic system, and goes back to groundwater. Those are the perpetrators.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, so from my experience on the PVCC, what we basically learned is what's caused the reduction in our water table was the vineyards. They're like pretty much 100% responsible. And now they want to get everyone else to pay for it. I think it's outrageous. I think the last thing we need is another agency, another bureaucracy, and this thing is going to turn into a runaway train, in my opinion. The funding is going to be astronomical. So I would think that either we want to look at this report and say what would we need to change to make it beneficial for us, or just basically, get out of it. I guess the question I would say, is it possible for us to piggyback at least the portion of the annual report that they are required to do? Maybe we continue paying our small fee on that we don't have to get involved in. But yeah, this thing, as it stands, especially with the revision, I think it's bad news for our district. I think it's bad news for our county. And it's really outrageous the way this thing is coming down, and the people that wells have gone dry because of these vineyards, and there's no mitigation for those people. And that's where the problem is. It's kind of the vineyards, and it's really government greed. They were putting in wells during the height of the drought, because I live right over by Loris surrounds me. And they were putting wells in left and right over there when they said no more wells, but apparently they got their permit application in before. But still, they're putting them in, they're drawing down the water. A lot of people are suffering because of that. And I would say either make this totally beneficial for us or get out. Most of you seem to light on that too.
Thank you. Okay, so you're asking for a vote from us? Yes?
No.
No.
So the option is there if you wanted to vote on approving it, but there was no expectation for that to happen. You're just leaving it open.
I do not.
So if there's other direction from this board on how to proceed, then we can accept that. If you just want to continue it until February, we can do that as well.
So I guess from my perspective, the next PBCC meeting is not until March. I mean, we could review it again in February, but I mean, is there any point? I personally don't see, what we would send back to them would be a complete revision of what you've given us.
So the county is supposed to review this, I believe, the first week of February. The city is supposed to do it, I believe, the second or third week of February.
They were both on the board, they're both doing it on the board.
I think the city said that they were going to do it on the 18th of February, not the 4th like was in the board packet.
Oh.
So if you want to continue it until our February meeting, then that would be after that, and we can see what happens with those other two agencies. But yeah, I mean, if we're just going to provide them a bloody copy and say, this is what we're going to do, I doubt that they're going to go along with that.
Right.
Being that this last revision appears to be a direct result of meetings with EPC and Shannon San Juan outside of the regular meeting schedule, I can't imagine that they're going to be willingly changing that.
Right. And I think council had a comment.
Oh, I was gonna just state what Kelly said that it is scheduled to be discussed by the other entities, and put up for approval. I don't believe any of them have actually had any open session discussions about it.
Well, there is actually, well, and I don't know how true this is, but Shannon San Juan met yesterday before the PVCC meeting and supposedly approved the version that you looked at today.
They always meet before the meeting.
Yeah, so they supposedly approved the version that you guys looked at today. At the PVCC meeting last night, EPC, their representative said that they have not met. They made it clear about how they have not met to discuss it as a board, but that it was indicated that they would approve the current language.
Because it's in their interest.
Of course.
Yeah.
So,
How do you?
not that there was a lot of question about whether they would approve that language or not, but just so this board understands that those two boards are, one has already approved it, one is likely to approve it by the end of February. So really it comes down to whether the city or city is willing to accept it, which to me seems unlikely. But
I think you need a conversation with the city.
Sit down.
Anybody interested in seeing what?
Actually, I'd like to just make an offer here, and I think Greg will agree with that. And we've done this before with your board, where, first of all, I've been through that whole, I have 2 pages of notes on this, and I'd like to put together my comments, and this is a tough thing to read because they refer to all kinds of other attachments, exhibits from plans and everything, so you have to it takes a long time to go through it. And what we've done in the past, when we were reviewing the problems with the MOA, the violations that were being done, we actually just had meetings with like 2 of the board members, which is permitted, and went through it, and, Smiley was in that meeting, and so was Owen, I think, right? And the one we did. So I think it would be helpful to kind of sort through and see what the pros and cons are, and not that we're experts, but I think we have, and Kelly was in the meeting too, right? As I recall. And I think we could get, if we sit down with 2 of you at a time, then we could kind of give you a little more feedback and get a little better feel. There's, like you said, there's no rush to do this, because the next action by the PVC committee is not going to be until the end of March.
Right.
So, and it's complicated and it's confusing, and I agree with Kelly. I mean, there's pros and cons to both sides of this thing, as far as you guys are concerned.
They're trying to push the deal so that they can get it on the tax rolls and try to tax the people. That's always the
I understand the basis of it. I mean, I guess so from a board member's perspective, is there value to getting more information or finding out what the city and county do in the meantime and revisiting this next month? Maybe.
I mean, it won't hurt anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to approve this version of it, obviously.
No, 100%. All right, then I would motion that we bring this back in February.
Have a second for that?
Second.
Everyone in favor? Consensus?
Yeah,
We'll bring it back.
Okay.
I would like to put it in file 13. File.
Kind of curious what the county of the city's gonna do.
And those things I handed out, if we get together before, that'd be a good time to kind of, that would give you a kind of.
When they're,
906, sorry.
just as a suggestion, and only a suggestion to you, when they're speaking to the audience like that, we can't have who's making a comment that they don't close the lectern.
Yeah, understood.
Because if I can, I'm speaking.
So we do have closed session, so if we can,
Move along.
everybody else out of here, so we'll be closed session and then we go.
Hey, leave.
I want public comment before you go into closed session.
Public comment and closed session.
Okay.
Well, we just adjourned the GSA, so yeah.
Yeah. All right, am I okay?
I closed my computer, but you're okay.
Turn it back on.
Thank you very much. This is for your closed session item today, this morning. I received two public comments. One was the water suppliers and local agencies case management conference statement that's going to happen January 27th, and the other is our claimants conference statement. Just so this deals with the quiet title, and the Paso Robles don't know what your position is. Paso Robles, in this comment, they act like they're talking to you, so that Paso Robles is going to go forward with Pueblo rights, even though they went for prescriptive rights, so we'll see what happens after the conference on the 27th, and the other, which will be the 6th case. The other 5 cases we've already prevailed in, and too bad we have to do this, but as a plaintiff in a quiet title action, the only thing that the plaintiffs have is to protect their rights on their land, and not asking anybody for anything, asking to be left alone and have no interference with our titles on our properties. Thank you.
Thank you.